Hi everybody, it's Kelly, and I'm really happy to be here with you in this video. I have here in Portland, where I live, I have two new classes beginning next week, and they're both adaptive, and they're both centered around practicing yoga in chairs. One of them is called chair yoga, and it's for anyone who wants to practice with the support of a chair. And the second is called Wise Yoga, a space for elders. And it's chair focused, chair centered, also lots of space for exploration using other supports like the wall and the earth and lots of props. And I thought it might be helpful for us to practice some chair yoga together because it's for everybody. You know, chair yoga is something that you can do if you are, sort of tied to a desk, or if you are, in a car for a long period of time, or even on an airplane. Chair yoga is for you. There's something here for you. And the idea that we are playing with in chair yoga is the same idea that we're playing with in the rest of our practice, and that is relaxing into the space that's already there, relaxing into the support that's already there, so that we can show up in our most authentic way. We can show up to the world with complete integrity. And one of the ways that we explore doing this in yoga is in the body, and that leads to other things, but a lot of times it really does begin in the body, and that's our gateway, our pathway to the practice. So thanks for being here. I'm really excited about this, and if you're interested in learning more about the Portland classes, you can visit my site sunroseyoga.com, or you can go directly to thepeoplesyoga.org. Thank you, my darling. And to start, you might take your yoga block and place it between the thighs. I'm using a really narrow block, so I'm going to place it through the wide way. But if you have a yoga block of regular width, place it between the thighs and just practice engaging with the block and then relaxing a bit. Engaging with the block, pressing your inner thighs into the block and then relaxing. And the idea is to engage with this block and thereby engaging in the body without over-engaging, without gripping. And that takes some work, that takes some practice, excuse me, to sort of settle into that space of relaxed engagement. Ease in effort. And once you're there, let yourself sort of sit back into your sitting bones a little bit more. Sit back into your tailbone a little bit more. And you might start to just sort of remember the natural, elegant length of your spine. You don't have to make your body anything that it's not already. You don't have to become something that you're not already. And what if you let a sort of smile happen across the collarbones? A kind of smile happen across the shoulder blades. From here, bring your hands to the tops of the knees or the tops of the thighs, and beginning with your neck and head, we'll breathe in, press the chin forward and gaze up. And as you breathe out, let your chin become heavy. And let the back of the skull, the base of the skull, become light. And we'll do this a few times. getting a sense of how your body makes these shapes. It doesn't have to look anything like how my body makes the shapes. And once you're sort of used to coordinating movement and breath, you might begin almost to amplify the movement. It's almost like you're just turning up the volume a couple of notches. And notice what that means in your body. Notice what's engaging. And notice what's relaxing. And you might, when you feel comfortable, then turn up the volume a couple more ticks so that you feel this is sort of exaggerated. And notice how the movement has spread across your body. And notice what happens when you let it spread across your body. What if you give your arms freedom to move as they will? If you give the back of the skull the freedom to have its own experience of the shape. What happens if you go into the soles of the feet and notice how they're experiencing these movements? Now, over the course of the next few breaths, let's bring this all back a little bit closer to the spine. And in time, you might arrive in a space where it's really hard to tell whether you're moving. And that is where yoga is happening. And from here, we'll just sort of like practice with the aliveness in the feet. And so what you might do is flex your feet and then point your toes. I know this is hard to see on the video. Flex your feet. Point your toes, maybe coming up onto the balls of the feet and onto the heels. And noticing how that movement comes up your legs, into your hips, into your low back. Oh my goodness. Maybe into your shoulders, maybe into your hands. And let those movements become smaller. And in time, we'll try something with our feet only. And use your imagination here, but imagine that you're picking up marbles with your feet. And there's a lot of them. And notice how that, if you watch, how you can feel that up into the legs, up into the knees, oh, up into the thighs. And let that movement go. Now in time, we'll scooch so that your left side is parallel to the back of your chair. And you can keep the block between the thighs or you can remove it. Just depends on what feels good. And we'll do just a little bit of twisting with this idea of letting each of your parts have its own experience to integrate your whole body into the shape. And so we'll start slowly. We'll start just by remembering the length of the spine. Don't have to change anything. And as you breathe out, just start to slowly turn to face the back of the chair. You might bring your left hand to the back of the chair. You might bring your right hand to your right knee. And just sort of dip a toe in. Just sort of like breathe in and lengthen. And as you breathe out, see if you can let go somewhere where you're gripping. And maybe again, you'll breathe in and lengthen. And maybe with a breath out, that right hand will find your left knee. Or maybe it will find the back of the chair. And you might breathe in and lengthen. And breathe out and soften one of those places where you might be gripping. And if your block falls, like, that's totally okay. That's part of the exploration. Part of knowing what's in something is figuring out what's out. And if it's okay, if it's appropriate on your neck, you might look over toward your left shoulder. And we'll breathe in and come back to the center. And just pause and notice. What a radical idea, like to notice what you feel in your body. And we'll do a little lateral work here. So take your right hand and take hold of the back of the chair. And we'll take the left hand and first inhale and reach it straight up toward the sky. And just relax into it. So there's nowhere to go here. And we'll breathe in and maybe grow a little bit longer. And as you breathe out, start to reach that left hand overhead, over toward the right. And so we're sort of like getting some traction by holding onto the back of the chair. We're letting the sitting bones be anchored, but remembering that length in the spine. Now you might let your elbow bend and maybe wiggle your fingers around here. You might experiment with finding a more comfortable position for your neck and head. And we'll come back up on a breath in. Bringing the hands back to the tops of the thighs and just pausing and noticing. What do you feel? Now let's do this the other way. Let's do it on the right. So we'll sort of spin around here so that the right side of your body is parallel to the back of the chair. And to start, with a breath out, settle into your sitting bones. You might feel like you're sitting back a little bit. And as you breathe in, remember the length of your spine. And as you breathe out, just start to bring your right hand over to the back of the chair. Let your shoulders be soft. There's nowhere you need to get to. So if you bring it to the far back of your chair and you feel like you're hunching up, ease up. The idea is to relax into the space that's already happening. And maybe with the next breath out, you take your left hand to the top of the right knee. Or maybe you take the left hand to the back of the chair as well. Let yourself settle into your sitting bones. Lengthen the body as you breathe in. And let go in one place where you're holding as you breathe out. And maybe you start to look toward the right shoulder. But if at any time you feel like you're gripping or like you're trying to get somewhere or that everything's closed down, then ease up. And we'll breathe in and unwind. And we'll breathe out and just sort of take stock of what's happening in the body. Just notice what you feel. And from here, we'll take the left hand and we'll place it on the back of the chair. We'll sort of like unwind the right hand, and with a breath in, we'll reach that hand toward the sky. Breathe out and just relax, settle into it. And as you take your next breath out, we'll reach the right hand up overhead, anchoring into the right sitting bone, lengthening the right side of the body, and then softening through the shoulders. You might even bend at the elbow. Now, if this is making your hand really tingly, you might sort of rest it on the top of your shoulder. Or if it's super tingly, you might bring it back to your hip. The lengthening is happening whether your arm is extended or not. Find that position for the neck and head that is not creating any new tension. We'll breathe in and come back up. We'll breathe out and pause. And really and truly, it is worth it to take the time to feel what you're feeling. Now from here, let's remove the block from between the thighs. And we'll do a little work for the hips. So if it feels okay, you might breathe in and draw your right knee toward your chest. Let the hip become a little bit heavier in the socket. And as you breathe out, let your knee move away from the torso. As you breathe in, tenderly draw the knee toward you. And as you breathe out, extend the knee away from you. And we'll just do it a few times. And we're mostly concerned with understanding our body. Like there's nowhere you need to get to here. The idea is to feel what's happening and to get a better idea of what is happening. So the next time you're hugging it in, we'll pause here, and you might hold the knee and let the hip become a little bit heavy. So you're not trying to pull it in, you're not trying to get anywhere, and you might start to become aware of your right sitting bone, like that bone you sit on, your ischial tuberosity. And once you get a feel for where that is, your booty bone, your butt bone, see if you can start to notice the distance between your sitting bone and your belly button. And as you breathe out, relax the effort of holding your knee. You might straighten the leg a little bit and flex the foot and bring the ankle to the top of the left knee. And you might bring your right hand to your right hip and just sort of experiment here, drawing your knee inward and outward. And notice what happens in your hip as you do that. And we'll do a little bit of deeper hip work here. Keeping the leg crossed, encouraging a sense of space in the hip. You might hold onto the back of your chair or the side of your chair as you just begin to let the heart spill forward. And remember, like, there's nowhere you need to get to. And you might tuck the chin ever so slightly. And with a breath in, we'll come back up. Help your leg uncross. And just sort of take a moment, pause, and feel. And we'll do the same with the second side. So we'll draw the knee in toward the chest, maybe holding your shin or hugging your shin. And you might breathe in and draw that knee in toward the chest, and breathe out, let it sort of like, move away from you. Letting the hip be heavy in its socket, the leg be heavy in its socket. Noticing what's happening. Like, there's no ideal here. There's nothing you need to do. There's no perfect apex of this shape. Notice the quality of the contact that your foot is making with the floor as you do this. And maybe the next time you're hugging your knee in, you just pause here. Let the hip become a little bit heavier. Let the face and the shoulders become a little softer. And you might, on this side, start to locate your sitting bone, on your left side. And can you imagine the distance, the space between that sitting bone and your belly button? And slowly relax the hold. You might extend that foot. Oh, my feet are dirty. Bending at the knee, maybe flexing the foot, bringing the left ankle to the top of the right knee. And you might again place your hands on your hip and sort of notice what happens here. We're letting an internal rotation happen and an external rotation. A bloom, a spaciousness in the hip. And in time, you might settle into that. Sit up straight if you've been leaning back, and take hold of the sides of your chair or the bottom of your chair, breathing in and find length, finding spaciousness in the left hip, and as you exhale, start to hinge, start to spill. And at the same time that we're sort of opening into the space of your left hip, your leg is also engaged. So there's a sense of support and strength rather than a sense of mushiness and hypermobility. And with the breath in, we'll come back up. We'll help our leg to uncross. And we'll just pause. And from here, we'll scooch even farther forward onto our chair, and we'll widen the legs. Wider than you would sort of sit in polite company. I know this is sort of racy or daring for the internet for me. So with wide legs, sustainably wide. So if you get to that point where you're like, oh shit, oh crap, what do I do? Come back. Place the hands on the tops of the thighs, and we'll breathe in and remember that natural length of your spine. And using the support of your legs, let your heart start to spill. Press the feet into the floor. Lengthen your body from your tailbone all the way beyond the crown of your head. And see if you can imagine the distance between the point of your right hip and your right armpit. And see if you can imagine the distance between the point of your left hip and your left armpit. And we'll breathe in and come all the way back up. You might turn the palms of the hands to face the sky. And just notice, what do you feel? Now from here, you might bring the legs slightly closer together so that you really have a sense of making contact with the earth. And you might breathe in and sweep the arms out to the sides and up overhead. And as you breathe out, press your feet into the floor as you bend at the elbows. Let's do that a few times. We'll inhale, Reach the fingers toward the sky. Breathe out and bend at the elbows as you press the feet into the floor. And this next time as you breathe out, we'll breathe out through the mouth, maybe sticking out the tongue and letting it be kind of wild. One more just like that. Breathe in, reach up. Breathe out, release the arms down. Turn the palms of the hands to face the sky. Bring the legs a little bit closer together. And notice what you feel. So from here we'll come down onto the floor. And we'll use the wall. And it's nice to have a blanket when you're working on the earth. And we'll practice legs up the wall. So for this, you might get some help coming down onto the floor. You can do that in a number of ways. Come down onto the floor. Start to move onto your back. Bracing yourself, scooch the legs up the wall. And take a moment to find out what feels best. Your bum may be all the way up to the wall. There might be some space between your backside and the wall. You might have the knees bent and the soles of the feet touching the wall. The feet can be wide or the feet can be close together. And to start, we'll inhale and reach the fingers toward the sky. And as you breathe out, let your shoulders settle into the floor, even as your fingers are still reaching. And we'll cultivate this sense of aliveness in the hands, aliveness in the soles of the feet. And you might press your feet into the wall. You might feel your calves pressing into the wall. And you might press your middle and low back into the floor. And with your next breath out, reach the arms up overhead and bend at the elbows so that your shoulders can feel some freedom. The palms of the hands will probably face the sky, but for some people it will make more sense to let the hands be soft and turn inward. Let your knees soften. There's nowhere you need to get to. Start to become aware of the contact that your body is making with the earth. Notice the back of the skull, the shoulders and the arms, the length of the back of the body and how it's cradled by the earth. Notice the contact that your body is making with the wall. Feel that support and yield to it. Notice the contact that your body is making with the sky, the air and the space all around you. And go into that contact. Allow yourself to be drawn into it. Feel the breath wash over the body and wash over the earth. And just rest. You might, in time, start to lower your feet toward your bum. And you might hug your knees. And this looks however it looks. It doesn't have to look just like what I'm doing. And you might rock or wobble or wiggle from side to side. Sway. Oh, swaying is one of my favorite words. And eventually you might sway over to your favorite side. And you can pause here for as little or as long as you like. You might send yourself a message of spaciousness, of wholeness, of peacefulness. And slowly start to move back toward upright. Take your time. There is no rush. And you might find your way back to your chair. And yield to the support of your chair. And remember the elegant length of your spine. And you might bring your hands to your heart in a way that makes sense for you. And you might say something to yourself, a word, a phrase, a mantra of sorts, that will remind you of this space. Could be something like peace, space, wholeness. Thank you so much for being here for this practice. I wish you peace, space, wholeness on your path until we meet again and always. Love.